Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Married Sakura, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
You'll be following us, now. Both Sakura and Naruto released their hold on the foe forms and drew their weapons. I thought the ninja of Konoha was smarter than this. You're in the middle of enemy territory, surrounded by rogue nin. Haruka's smile was smug, thinking victory was his. Rule number 1 in the Ninja Academy: never underestimate your opponent, Naruto said, his lips curling into a snarl. He flicked his hand and a kunai flew towards Haruka. The shinobi dodged the attack, but failed to see a certain pink-haired Kunoichi leap from behind her teammate. Sakura cracked her fist across Haruka's jawline and was quick to follow the hit. This time, she brought her leg up to his ribs, and heard a satisfying crunch. Even if he had someone heal his wounds from the last time she fought him, his muscles and bones would still be bruised. She wanted to see this bastard cry. Sakura-chan. Behind you. The woman had just enough time to see Naruto jump to her side to block several shuriken that could have very well killed her. Goru was obviously not just skilled with his nostrils. Sakura grabbed a kunai and quickly tackled Haruka, slamming his body to the ground and holding the weapon to his throat. She turned to see Naruto flailing about from the top of Goru's shoulders, the Uzumaki's arms wrapped in a vice-like grip around the man's thick throat. This was too easy. Where's Tama? Sakura growled towards Haruka, her hand forcing the weapon dangerously close to the shinobi's jugular. Tama. The man's dark eyes widened in surprise. You two are here for her. He immediately began to chuckle, causing the Kunoichi's blade to cut into his skin slightly, but the man didn't show any signs of discomfort. What the hell was he laughing about? Just shut up and tell me where she is, or I'll resort to finishing what I left undone this morning. Sakura clenched his throat with her hand as she aimed the tip of her kunai directly towards his genitalia. Her blood was boiling with rage. If he didn't tell her where Tama was, she would have no qualms with removing his manhood. TSK. Now we won't be having any of that here, Ms. Haruno. Sakura turned the slightest angle so as to keep Haruka in her sights, but just enough to take in the new enemy. His portly figure was accentuated by his rather short stature. Sakura was easily this man's height, maybe even taller. The stranger's skin had a pasty pale tone and his fingers were weighed down with an insane amount of jewelry. His eyes were dark, but the Kunoichi wasn't sure if they were exactly brown. There was something completely off about those eyes. With all the uneasy confusion that this man brought about, there was one thing she was sure about: this was the man they were looking for. Boss, the pretty Kunoichi smells like cherry blossoms and honey. The collector nodded towards his subordinate. Yes, she does indeed. He took a moment to adjust one of the rings on his thick fingers. Sakura, why don't you put your kunai down? And Naruto, I would appreciate it if you would let go of Goru's neck. I'm sure that is hurting you more than it is hurting him. What is this man playing at? Even as she heard the remaining rogue nins that occupied the cafeteria now surround them, Sakura made no move to withdraw her weapons. And she was damn sure Naruto could hold onto that big lug's neck all night if he had to. This bastard was trying to play the friend card. Her green eyes scanned the collecting group of shinobi. Most of them seemed below her level and were definitely a far cry from Naruto's status. Sakura growled and pressed one of her blades into the man's neck. She could feel Haruka's pulse quicken. He'd better be scared. The Kunoichi was in no mood to play any games. There's no fucking way I'm letting this asshole go. Naruto's voice barked from behind her, a reassuring sound that had her mind untangle the knot it had made. Her own sense of defiance grew with his, and she looked directly into the collector's eyes and saw that they were not a brown at all, but a deep, dark, menacing red, an all too familiar color for the Kunoichi. I will ask you this one more time. Put the weapons down. No one moved. No. Well, then, maybe you'll listen to your friend, he said with a sick smile on his face as he turned his head slightly. My little minx, why don't you try and persuade these trespassers? Sakura could feel the shinobi below her shake with laughter. I'll let them go, Sakura. What? Tama. Sakura jumped up immediately and began to run towards the woman. Sakura-chan, stop. She's on their side. Sakura heard the Uzumaki's voice call out to her. She froze in her tracks, her eyes shifting back and forth between that large, ugly man, and her new friend. The look on the gypsy's face could only be described as utter guilt. The older woman wouldn't even look at Sakura. On their side. How can that be possible? The Kunoichi kept her eyes locked onto her friend, her hands losing the grip on the handles of the kunai. Her world was unraveling at the seams. This was the woman who basically gave her the push to find her feelings towards Naruto. This was the same woman who helped her throughout her later months of pregnancy. The woman who delivered her child. Well done, Tama. The collector gently pulled on a long lock of Tama's dark hair and caressed it gently across his face. As always, his brooding eyes flickered open to look over to Naruto. Since your teammate here has decided to let her captive go, why don't you follow suit? There was a short silence that broke into the night. Sakura was finding it all too hard to breathe now. So many lies had consumed her, and had weaved into the fabric of her life. In the end, would she be able to untangle herself from this web? Tama shifted her weight to stand away from her master and turned her eyes even further away from the Kunoichi. A low growl rumbled from next to Sakura as she felt that familiar presence of the Uzumaki. She tore her eyes away from Tama and looked to Naruto, unsure of just what was going on. He turned to her, and she could tell he was just as shocked as she was. Sakura brought her gaze back towards the head man and the traitor. But, this can't, she said. Oh, are you confused, Sakura? Not quite sure why the woman you have come to befriend, had all along been your enemy. The man reached out quickly and took Tama by her neck, digging his thumb into her. His eyes sparkled with amusement as he watched her gasp for air and then threw her to the ground without a second thought. Sakura moved to help her, but Haruka and Goru made to move in front of the fallen woman. Naruto took her by the hand and pulled her back, a snarl emitting from his mouth towards the two men. I own her. The collector's eyes shined happily. Every hair on her body and every drop of blood that flows through her veins belong to me. She was merely a pawn in my all too flawless plan. She is not property to be owned. The pink-haired woman's temper raged like a wildfire. She could feel her chakra pulsing through her, itching to be used. Those pair of red eyes ravaged her, scanning her body as if she was some piece of meat. Tama was right about you. You have quite the reserve of chakra in you, Ms. Haruno. I'm sure that your children, too, will have such delicious amounts. He turned to Naruto and let his eyes roam the young man's body. And I'm quite sure the child of the Jinchuriki will be just as powerful. Sakura's skin felt like ice. The smile that came across this man's face looked brazenly confident. The portly man took a deep breath and stepped over towards the two. Sakura felt Naruto release her hand from his tightening clutch. And what was your plan, you bastard? To lure me into your headquarters? Why keep me on the run? You could have had me in your stupid prison months ago. The collector looked to Naruto and began to mindlessly fiddle with one of the rings on his fingers. I suppose the Uchiha and that so-called genius Nara thought they had figured my plan out, am I right? I was collecting rare items such as the copy nin, and wanted to add Naruto Uzumaki to my little treasures. And moved my headquarters around so that they would not find me. Sakura and Naruto gasped. How much did he know about them? Boss. You don't have to tell em a damn thing. Haruka glared, his eyes locking mainly onto Sakura. Well, the man continued, ignoring the warning words, they were only partially right. The reason I didn't capture you 4 months ago was because that would have been too soon. Granted that this situation happened somewhat early, but I'm a man of preparation. Does that answer your question? The wheels in Sakura's head were spinning at insane revolution. He knew Naruto was following his men, and was keeping him occupied. But why? He knew from the start about Shika, Sasuke and Naruto, so why not wipe them out and take the Jinchuriki? Haruka, he said, how long do you think it takes to reach the fair village of Konoha? 2 days if I leave now, sir. 2 days. Well, that just won't do. I need him in an hour. Tama, I'm sure my little minx can concoct something to speed my fastest shinobi's pace up. Well, second fastest shinobi, thanks to Sakura here. She went ahead and killed Ichiru. He idly played with the rings on his fingers once more. Tama, answer me. Tama looked over to Sakura, and the Kunoichi saw something that could only be described as pure fear. Why yes. Then get to it. I want Haruka out of here in 1 minute. I'm getting hungry. What do you want with Konoha? There is no need for shouting, Sakura. I am right in front of you. The collector moved his hand and flicked it towards the surrounding men. They instantly began to return to the cafeteria near the weapons bungalow. Very well. I suppose there is no harm in telling you of my marvelous and flawless plan now that the ending is inevitable. As you know by now, my powers have an unfortunate time limit. Boss. Haruka, may I remind you that you should be gone within the next, he said, looking at his watch, 30 seconds. The shinobi and the woman took off immediately. Now, as I was saying. My powers have a time limit. And I feed upon others' chakra to maintain my own levels. If they were infinite, I would be able to control the most powerful being known to this world, the Jinchuriki known as Naruto Uzumaki. As we all know, every organization from hell to high waters has been vying for possession of the Jinchuriki Naruto since the day he was cursed with the Kyuubi. I, myself, being a rather smart man, have never been one to risk my own hide in some stupid war against those like the Akatsuki. But since they were demolished by no one other than the little Uchiha brat, my problems were solved. I was now able to put my plan into action. I would control the Kyuubi. No one can control the Kyuubi. Unless, my pretty Kanoiki, you have powers such as I have. I needed a stable, yet powerful chakra to consume. The type of chakra I need to eat must be one similar to the Kyuubi container himself. Say, a relative. To her side, Sakura could feel Naruto's chakra pulsing out of his body in his rising emotions. He was absolutely livid. However, Sakura felt her blood run cold. His words were driving too close to home. I investigated every little detail about Naruto, starting from his shoe size all the way to his frequent routine of walking by the Konoha hospital to catch a glimpse of a certain pink-haired woman. Hey, shut up. So you were stalking me. What the hell do you want with Konoha now that you have me? Naruto screamed at the man. Sakura was completely baffled with this enemy's plans, but couldn't hide the blush that came across her cheeks at the thought of Naruto stealing glances of her at work. Were you not listening? I need the chakra of your relative to control the beast within you. Really now, it's not that hard to grasp. I don't have any relatives, you asshole. They're all dead. Sakura looked to Naruto, her stomach twisting in a torrent of knots. The shinobi clenched his jaw, obviously trying to tame the fiery anger that this man was fueling. Why, Sakura, you haven't told him. A sick smile spread across the collector's face and his red eyes glinted in the moonlight. The Kanoiki looked down to the ground, not believing that she was in this situation. There could be no possible way to get out of this. Sakura opened her mouth, but her throat felt dry and parched. She couldn't muster the words that her friend deserved to hear for so long. He has a family to call his own. What are you talking about, you bastard? Sakura jumped slightly at the bark of Naruto's voice and looked towards him. It might be the trick of the light, but the Kanoiki swore that she could see the slightest shade of red in the Uzumaki's eyes. Think about it, Naruto-kun. You took your beloved Cherry Blossom to bed that first night of your escort mission to the port. What normally happens when a man and a woman make love? Certainly Konoha teaches their children about sex and babies. The look that came upon the shinobi's face was something that Sakura couldn't describe. His brow furrowed and color in his eyes started to swirl. His face contorted between so many emotions, Sakura couldn't keep up with him. But no matter what, Sakura didn't look away. She refused to turn away from him now that he finally found out the truth. No matter how he would react, she would face him head on. He deserved that much after all he had done for her. Naruto, she said in a hoarse whisper. But she was interrupted. When I came across Sakura Haruno, their enemy continued, and Sakura finally drew her eyes away from the Uzumaki to look at the rogue nin leader. I was indeed intrigued. She had an outstanding amount of chakra and such a skillful control over it as well. I finally knew that I had found the answer to my little problem. I first intended to use Tama as the carrier, but it was all too simple once you led me to your precious one, Naruto. And who better to give birth to the child of the Jinchuriki than the Hokage's apprentice? No, this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Tama fed Sakura that illustrious fruit and it was all too easy from there. And with such massive amount of chakra herself, I'm sure that when your seed would mix with her egg, something oh so powerful would come to fruition, no pun intended. And I was right, wasn't I? Although little Toru didn't have the chakra of the demon fox, he had what I'd like to call an eternal well. A reserve of chakra that runs so deep, that he has limitless potential should he grow and become a shinobi. But too bad for him that he is exactly what I need to consume in order to be rid of my powers handicap. He's going to eat Toru's chakra and have complete control over Naruto and the Kyuubi. Then, Naruto, my boy, I can have you internally suffer as you help me take over this country and destroy what's left of your friends and newly made family. You will be imprisoned in your own body. Forever. The collector turned to Sakura and smiled happily. And you left your newborn son in the capable hands of your dear friend Ino, am I right, Sakura? Sakura's heart stopped. Everything that had happened in her life from meeting Tama, right up till now, was of his doing. He was the puppet master, and indeed they have all been strung along quite flawlessly. Boss. The potion's done. Oh, nicely done, indeed. Tama, you're just in time for Sakura and Naruto to thank you for bringing about the demise of the newborn son and their country. Tama looked over to Sakura, her dark eyes pooling with tears. Sakura-chan, I. But Sakura wasn't paying attention to her. The Kunoichi's green eyes were locked onto the sick sadistic bastard alias the Collector. Sakura felt her body shake violently with hatred. She had never felt so much abhorrence towards one person in all of her life. She was going to kill him. No, she was going to slowly torture this bastard until he was screaming for mercy. She would cut away his body inch by inch, starting with those stupid, fat, fingers, and make him eat every fucking jewel he wore. He would pay. You can leave now, Haruka. There's nothing that these two can do. Don't you dare touch Toru. Sakura reached for her kunai and threw it at Haruka. But he was gone. All that was left was a blazing trail of fire that his feet left in their abnormal speed. He would indeed make it there before the hour. Sakura felt her stomach lurch. There was no way in hell someone was going to touch her son. No way in hell. She needed to at least take this guy's army down. Sakura looked to the side to see the armor bungalow not too far from him, and on the door was the small white piece of parchment that she had left on the door for just this occasion. Sakura smirked and formed the seals with her hands in quick movements. Moments later, a domino effect of an explosion boomed throughout the quad, taking out the buildings alongside the weapons house. Those men inside didn't stand a chance. I didn't care for those men anyhow. My interests lie in the bigger fish. The big boss's eyes grazed casually over his destroyed headquarters. He wasn't fazed one little bit. Sakura-chan. Damn. She knew this was coming. Naruto. Her voice was shaky, but she never felt more lucid in all of her life. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. But right now my son's life is in danger. And whether you like it or not, he's your son too. And no matter what I do next, so help me God if you stop me from protecting him. She stopped the moment she felt his warm hand grip hers tightly. She looked up to him to find his eyes concentrated onto her. They were dangerously turning towards the shade of red. Naruto was trying desperately to keep his demon at bay, but with all of this news coming at him at once, she didn't know how long he could control the Kyuubi that lay inside of him, biding his time before he could come thrashing through. Your chakra looks so scintillating whenever you get angry, Sakura. It's absolutely delicious. Since we'll be waiting for your son's arrival, why not we have some fun with you too? Say a little match between lovers. Now I want to save the best for last, so why not I try to tame a cherry blossom? Sakura felt a tight grip around her body and looked up to see Goru viciously smiling down at her. The pink-haired woman struggled fruitlessly against the massive shinobi. Even with her chakra increased strength, she couldn't budge. Sakura-chan. Naruto leapt at the man, but Goru knocked him against the nearest bungalow wall, leaving quite the crater in the metal shack. The collector walked over towards Sakura, his pupils dilating and completely covering his blood-red irises and his sclera. The Kunoichi turned her head away, knowing that if she looked into his eyes, she would lose control over her own body. But Goru grasped her head and forced her to face the man. Sakura snapped her eyes shut, determined to maintain control over her psyche. That will do you no good, my pretty Kunoichi. I don't need to look into one's eyes to control them. I need to merely touch them once, and they are mine. Sakura snapped her eyes open and shook violently in Goru's grasp, sinking her teeth into the man's arms, drawing blood. She couldn't let him control her body. There was no way. Hee. That tickles. Now stay still. This will only hurt infinitely. Don't you fucking touch her. Sakura looked to see Naruto rise up from the ground, his eyes flaming red. Naruto clenched his fists and reached behind him for his weapons. One more move, boy, and I'll have Goru snap her like a twig. The collector didn't take his eyes off of Sakura as he motioned towards his subordinate. Instantly Sakura felt the big lug's grip tighten harshly onto her body. Her face contorted in pain as she swallowed a scream. Any more pressure would reduce her bones to dust. You son of a bitch. Naruto. Matt. Tama ran over to the raging Uzumaki and Sakura saw through her blurry vision the gypsy's mouth moving rapidly. Naruto stilled, though his fury was still evident. The Kunoichi's green eyes flickered back to the man in front of her just in time to see him reach his hand out towards her face. His eyes were completely black now, concentrating onto her with such an intense focus. Sakura was waiting anxiously to feel the loss of her mental and physical control. Would it feel like just as her dream had shown her? But that was the chakra depletion. Would this be even more painful? Sakura's muscles tensed in anxiety and fear as the man placed his cold and heavy palm onto her cheek. Sakura gasped at the chill of his skin and the bastard grinned happily, for only a split second. How does it what? He snapped his hand away, glaring lividly at Sakura. He looked up and down her body and then focused his eyes intensely below her throat. He reached out and tore at her shirt, ripping it open. Sakura felt Goru's grip lessen significantly and she used all of her strength to knock her head back into the man's face. She heard a loud crack and a wounded cry as Goru released her, clutching his broken nose. Sakura pushed away from the man, turning her body, and she sent 3 kunai flying towards the muscled man. Each landed right in his throat and knocked him down dead. Sakura landed painfully onto the ground, knocking the wind right out of her lungs. Sakura-chan. Naruto ran over to Sakura and helped her to her feet. What was going on? Shouldn't she be a mindless drone now? Sakura grabbed tightly onto Naruto's shoulder as she began to catch her breath. How did you? So you think you've prepared for everything, you fat bastard. Sakura looked towards Tama to find her standing beside the 2 teammates. Her hands plopped firmly onto her hips and her eyes glowed with defiance. The stone. That's right. You didn't think a seer couldn't find the one handicap of the mighty Shota. You're even stupider than I thought. Tama growled and opened the ripped collar of Sakura's top, revealing the green necklace she had given her many months ago. The Stone of Jizo. The god's purpose is to protect against evils like you. Your powers have absolutely no effect upon the wearer of this stone. Sakura clenched a fistful of Naruto's shirt in her hands. So Tama didn't betray them. She had, from the very beginning, protected her. You stupid whore. Shota was cut short with a punch to his pudgy face and was knocked to the ground. Tama growled and kicked him repeatedly. You killed my family, enslaved me and my entire village. You stole our earnings and to top it all off, you made me betray the one friend I have ever had. What are you doing? I own you. Shota the collector was shocked. That enough was obvious. Naruto and Sakura were at a loss for words as they watched their comrade furiously beat the man. What am I doing? This is something you should be all too familiar with, Shota. The woman slammed her knees into the man's chest, pinning him where he laid and pulled out a senbon from her mussed hair. Her breath was jagged, but her aim was true. She held the sharp weapon right above one of Shota's eyes. Revenge. Holy shit, Naruto breathed as he clutched onto Sakura's arm. Sakura. Naruto. If you leave now you can still beat out Haruka. I only gave him enough to make it halfway there. Here, take this. Tama reached into a pouch behind her and tossed a bottle of dark liquid to the 2. It's only enough to get you part of the way there, but it should help you catch up. Go now. But, Sakura was torn. Such a big part of her wanted to stay here and kill the bastard for doing all of this to her family and friends. But the biggest part of her wanted to protect her child. Sakura turned to look at the Uzumaki and found him looking to the ground, his brow furrowed in thought. He took a deep breath and exhaled harshly. He was never one to leave a mission incomplete. Sakura pulled the hood of her cloak over her head and turned away from Naruto. If he didn't want to save his son, then fine. Sakura would go. Tama-chan. Sakura froze at the sound of his voice. We'll be back, so you better save some of this bastard to kick around. The Kunoichi felt her heart swell at the thought of having Naruto with her to protect their son. She was such an idiot sometimes. How could she doubt that Naruto would come to protect his family? Sakura turned back to Naruto and pulled the cork from the bottle. The concoction's smell turned her stomach, but she plugged her nose and took a big gulp. It tasted like spoiled ramen and curdled milk. She handed the bottle to Naruto and he chugged the rest of the contents, his face instantly turning blue. Expert potion maker, terrible cook. He growled, his hand covering his mouth to force the drink down. He threw the bottle to the ground, shattering the container to pieces. The potion began to work its magic. Sakura felt her blood boiling, and her heart pounding as it sent blood cells racing throughout her muscles. Her adrenaline was pumping and she felt like she could run the course of the earth in minutes. The Kunoichi grabbed her teammate's hand and looked into his swirl of blue and red eyes. Naruto's chest was moving rapidly with his quick, rhythmic breathing. Sakura took one more look at Tama and the gypsy woman nodded in knowing. The Kunoichi turned back to the blonde shinobi. Let's go. Trails of fire were left in their tracks. It took them only 20 minutes before they could both pick up his scent. But it didn't matter, for all they had to do was follow the burning trail his feet left behind. Sakura and Naruto had indeed covered almost 2 days' length run in under an hour. But Haruka's trail was drawing dangerously closer to Konoha than either of them expected. The potion must have been of a higher concentration than what Tama had explained. Sakura's muscles felt absolutely normal going at this insane speed. She couldn't even fathom how fast they were running. But would it be fast enough to beat out Haruka? They were merely miles from the gates of Konoha. Sakura-chan, Naruto called out, his voice rough, I want you to answer my question. Naruto, I don't know if this is the right time. When is it ever going to be the right time, Sakura-chan? There's always going to be something that will stand in our way, whether it's a mission or your hospital work. And I'm sick of all these stupid things that keep us from talking. I want you to answer me truthfully. Sakura looked ahead, trying to keep her mind focused on the task at hand. But Naruto was right. Kami, the stupid idiot, was right. And it made Sakura want to cry. Okay, Barker. Naruto was silent for a moment, leaving only the sound of the blurring wind and roar of the passing trees between them. Finally the shinobi spoke. Even if it's the smallest bit, no matter how tiny and completely insignificant, is there even a small part of you that loves me? Sakura's heart clenched tightly and she could feel her breath hitch despite the rapid flow of air she was processing. From those very lips came the question that so many people before had asked her. Does she love him? Her mind and heart had been plagued with her mixed feelings for so long, but now that she had found her answer, she was surprised that she couldn't come to a conclusion sooner. Because of their rapid speed, there was no possible way she could take her eyes off of her course to look at him, so she would have to deal with just saying the words for now. She could feel a blush come over her face as she finally began to say those long-awaited words. Naruto, shit. There he is. What? Sakura angrily looked around and sure enough, a mere few hundred yards ahead was Haruka. He had now slowed down to a regular human pace of running. Sakura knew that if he was out of the potion's power, then she and Naruto didn't have long either. She pushed her body for all it was worth in order to close the gap between them, and Naruto followed suit. Inside she screamed obscenities. Her confession would have to wait. Haruka was just 100 yards away now, and Sakura could feel the effects of the concoction wearing off. She pushed her body even more to reach him. Just as the two shinobi came into the man's perimeters, Haruka spun around and released several senbon at the Konoha shinobi. Sakura dropped to the ground and rolled out of the weapon's paths, and Naruto flew over the senbon that came his way. The orange-clad shinobi jumped right back up and tackled Haruka to the ground, digging a kunai into the enemy's shoulder. Your run ends here, asshole. Oh, but I so wanted to play around with that bouncing baby boy of yours, Jinchuriki. And once I've delivered that little brat, Haruka turned to look towards Sakura, a sick smile on his face. I'm gonna give that blossom the time of her life. He spat into Naruto's face and laughed manically and pushed the Uzumaki off of him. Sakura rushed over to Naruto, but he grabbed her hand, stilling her. The blonde stood up, his eyes flaming red. No one touches Sakura, he said in a darkened tone. Oh, I'm sorry, Jinchuriki. But I don't give a flying fuck. No one touches Haruka. So once I hand that kid over to my boss, I'm gonna take her and then skin her pretty fair flesh from her body. And hang her corpse to dry like jerky. Sakura felt like tearing this man's throat out. She reached for her kunai and looked up to find Naruto clutching Haruka by his throat. My name is not Jinchuriki. The blonde shinobi shouted into Haruka's ear before throwing him to the ground. And don't you ever touch my family. Fists went flying as Naruto pummeled Haruka with repeated blows. Sakura's body was numb with shock, watching as he continuously beat the shinobi to a bloody mess. The medic Nin could already tell that Haruka would never be able to see out of his right eye ever again. And from the looks of it, his legs would not be moving anytime soon. But none of this mattered. She didn't feel anything but a rush of blood to her head as she processed Naruto's words. My family. Naruto. Sakura walked over to the fighting shinobi and touched the blonde's shoulder. Naruto, that's enough. As much as Sakura wanted to torture this man to a quivering mess which he was practically already at, they needed to get going. Whether it was to Konoha or back to Tama, they needed to go. No. This bastard is gonna get it. Naruto swung at him, his body shaking with anger. He wasn't going to stop. Sakura bit her lip, her mind racing through her options. But she knew there was no other way around this. The Kunoichi reached behind her and drew one of her kunai. Sakura took aim and threw it deep into Haruka's throat, killing him. But Naruto continued to relentlessly beat him. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? He's dead. Sakura grabbed hold of him, securing her arms around him in a tight hold. He struggled against her, his arms still trying to angrily punch the body. Sakura gathered her chakra into her arms, locking the shinobi in place. He thrashed against her for minutes, but eventually stilled, his breathing heavy and angered. The blonde dropped his head down onto Sakura's shoulders and muffled his scream. Gomenasai, Sakura-chan, I just. He wrapped his arms around Sakura and took a deep breath, exhaling his warm air into her pink tresses. I know. Sakura held him tightly, calming not only Naruto, but herself as well. Her heart was racing so quickly with just the thought of Naruto being protective over his family. He followed Sakura to come here and save their son. One he didn't know he had until an hour ago. The Kunoichi finally broke the silence between them. Naruto, to answer your question. Nani. Naruto lifted his head and looked into her green eyes. There isn't a small part of me that loves you. Naruto's eyes widened as a look of pure hurt came across his face. He slowly dropped his arms from Sakura's waist and nodded lightly. Sakura-chan. Baka. There isn't a part. Not even a big part. Sakura-chan, you don't have to rub it in. He looked away and Sakura rolled her eyes, tightening her grip around the lean but muscular man. Sakura obviously went about this the wrong way. This was Naruto she was talking with. Try the entire thing, you idiot. Naruto looked to Sakura, his brow knitting in confusion. But it only took a moment for him to grasp her words. Nani. The biggest, goofiest, and toothiest grin came across his face and Sakura felt that wonderful electric shock run down her spine. He could make her feel so wonderful with just a slight curve of his mouth. I love you completely, Naruto. Not with just a part of my heart, but all of it. Sakura rolled her eyes once more at the thought of this blonde idiot having such control over her emotions. I couldn't get rid of the feeling if I tried. Sakura-chan. Naruto leaned in towards Sakura, resting his head against hers. Sakura took in a deep breath, inhaling Naruto's wonderful, masculine scent. You're not going to cry, are you, Dobe? The two lovers sat up stock straight. T-team. What the hell are you doing here? Naruto stood to his feet, helping Sakura to stand up beside him. I should be asking you the same thing. Sasuke turned and looked over to Sakura, his eyes sharpening. He knows, I assume. Sakura looked to Sasuke and her eyes widened. You know about Toru? No. If Sasuke could laugh, he would have at this moment. But, this was Sasuke Sakura was talking to. Your little spawn has been annoying me for the last 4 hours. I hope you're finally here to retrieve him. We can't. We have to go and get Tama. Sakura looked to Naruto and he nodded. The woman turned back to Sasuke and found him looking past her and Naruto. His eyes were dripping with anger, and she could tell his Sharingan was going to flare on soon. Sakura turned and gasped. No need. I brought her. Shota smiled sickly, gesturing to the corpse that lied by his feet. Tama. 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 Sakura dropped to her knees, her eyes never leaving that haunting, glassy white stare of Tama's lifeless body. She could have been sleeping for all Sakura knew, if it weren't for those eyes, those milky white eyes that wouldn't stop looking at her. This wasn't right, not at all. Sakura was supposed to defy fate and change the path that Tama had been set upon. Sakura had failed Tama and had failed herself once again. Tama, Tama, Tamaaa. Sakura could feel those tears she had long been forcing back come gushing through her in multiple bursts. Tama and her entire village had been enslaved by Shota and made to do his bidding. Who knew how many nights Tama went to sleep in tears? Sakura had no right to cry. She wasn't the one who had their life cut short, yet she just couldn't stop herself. Ah, yes. Cry, my pretty Kanoiki. Your tears can only bring me even more satisfaction about this slave's demise. What a shame you couldn't see me take the very life from her lips or see as her dark, vibrant eyes dulled with death. It was all too pleasing. Sakura continued to sob uncontrollably. Get up. Sasuke's words were terse, but somewhere in him Sakura could tell he had no intention of being rude. Somehow rudeness just came too naturally to the dark-haired ninja. As much as she wanted to scream obscenities at the Uchiha and beat every living being that came into her vision, Sakura knew that she needed to stand. A ninja could not fight on their knees. Not if they wanted to live, anyways. The Kanoiki took several broken breaths and stood up with her fists clenched so tightly, she could feel her nails piercing through her gloves. Her body was shaking in anger and anguish. She felt a warm touch on her shoulder and looked to see Naruto glaring menacingly at Shota. Sakura wiped her tears away and calmed her body and mind. She needed to keep her wits about her if she wanted to take this despot down. Sakura brought her hands together and cracked her knuckles, releasing some long-built tension in her hands. Ooh, getting serious. Shota's eyes sparked with laughter. Believe me, you son of a bitch, this is one side of me you should have never awakened. Sakura reached from behind her and pulled out 3 shuriken, each resting between the fingers of her right hand. She was itching to lodge each of them into his skull. Oh, but it's not you I want to awaken. However, I suppose if you want to play. In a flash he stood before her, his hand cradling her chin. Let's play. Before Sakura could react, the man grabbed her by her wrist and flipped her onto the ground. The Kanoiki jumped back up, not missing a beat. There was no way she was going to get taken out with some simple move. She sent her weapons flying right towards the man's head, heart, and abdomen, opting to spread the attacks all over his body. Shota barely dodged her assault, and instantly Naruto leapt after the man, his kunai sinking deep into the man's shoulder. Shota hissed, his hands clutching onto the blonde shinobi's arms. The two began to struggle. TCH, that barker. He fell right into his trap. Sasuke had remained stoic, his eyes the only part of his body flickering every now and then. What do you? Sakura looked to Naruto and gasped. Naruto, look away. But it was too late. Sakura watched helplessly as Shota's pupils widened, activating his power. Sakura watched as Naruto's body began to shake violently and his grip on Shota loosened. A smile crept across the portly man's face as Naruto turned around. The blonde shinobi's eyes were dulled and his face was vacant of his normal passionate look. He was a complete stranger to the woman. If I cannot control you, Sakura, I will control him to get to you. Shota smiled happily, his face completely smug. The Kanoiki felt a cold grip wrap about her wrist tightly, stopping her from strangling the enemy. Don't move. Sasuke's eyes were turning into the familiar red and black. He was activating his Sharingan. Let me go. She was absolutely livid. You don't stand a chance against Naruto's strength. A ball of fire blazed within the pit of Sakura's stomach as her anger began to overflow. She tore away from Sasuke's grasp and began to take her cloak off. Don't you ever tell me what I can and cannot do, Sasuke. I'm fucking sick and tired of having you and Naruto protect me. I can fight, and I can win. Don't be foolish, Sakura. I won't have you getting in the way. With Naruto under that man's control, there's no stopping him from unleashing the Kyuubi's power. He's not stupid, Sasuke. If he unleashes the Kyuubi's power now, he won't be able to control it. He needs Toru's chakra to be able to keep him in his mental grasp. Very clever, Sakura, Shota said. I'm going to have Naruto rip that annoying amulet from your throat so I can have you lead me to your son. A sick smile spread across the man's face as his words darkened with malice. I was going to wait until I drained your son of his chakra to take control of your lover here, but you just decided to piss me off. Sakura threw her cloak aside and tightened her gloves. She could feel the ball of fire in her stomach raging painfully with the thought of what Shota intended to do with Naruto and their son. Sasuke, you either fight with me or get the hell out of the way, because I'm not holding back. Sakura felt her chakra pulse violently like never before. She knew chakra was tied closely to one's emotions, so maybe that was the reason she felt such strength. The pink-haired woman took a deep breath and guided her chakra to the soles of her feet and to her tightly clenched fists. Sasuke almost rolled his eyes in reaction. TCH, you're still annoying. Sakura laughed out loud. And you're still our teammate. So fight. Who said I wasn't going to? Sakura looked to her dark-haired teammate to see him lightly smirking. But the smile was short-lived as they heard a chuckle rumble from the portly enemy. Shota lifted his hand and flicked a finger towards Naruto. The blonde ninja's head snapped towards Sakura. The Kunoichi's heart clenched, but she kept her wits about her. Naruto crouched low to the ground, his dulled eyes beginning to swell with red. Sakura gasped. Already, she whispered. Of course. Shota overheard her. I am not a man to waste an opportunity. Although I may not be able to bring out the demon completely, there is no reason I cannot use this Jinchuriki's powerful chakra reserve. To her side she heard Sasuke draw his katana. You're not going to hurt him, are you? Sakura's heart was racing wildly, furiously pumping blood throughout her body. She needed to come up with some kind of attack plan in the next 5 seconds, or she could very well die. Naruto was being controlled by the Collector, who had a time limitation to his power. So if they fended off Naruto for 5 minutes, they could take down the weakened Shota. Okay, that was simple. If that Dobe is stupid enough to get killed, it won't be my fault. Naruto, Shota said in a darkened tone, get the necklace. Sakura felt a cold chill rush down her spine as she watched Naruto, her eyes tracking every slight flicker of motion from his body. There was no way she could have him take the amulet. That would not only mean her death, but Toru's as well. The blonde ninja took off almost immediately towards Sakura at an insane speed. The Kunoichi would not hesitate. She coiled her arm back, her eyes locked onto her target. The moment he stepped into her line of fire, she rammed her fist into his abdomen. Sakura heard the air shoot out of his mouth as he flew across the forest floor, landing painfully into a tree. Sakura was breathing heavily, but it was not from lack of energy. Her anger was raging, and she knew that that would be the key to deciding the end of this fight. A blur of colors shot in front of Sakura, followed by a loud clang. A shower of sparks floated about her as her vision righted itself to see Sasuke holding Naruto back with his katana. How did that idiot recover so quickly? Sakura growled and jumped over Naruto, rushing towards Shota with her chakra-enhanced speed. While Sasuke kept Naruto busy, she could take out the source, starting with his eyes. Sakura whipped out several senbon, her face darkening with hatred. Shota laughed as the Kunoichi closed the gap between them. She snarled and leapt at him, one hand wielding the senbon, the other clenched and ready to break his bones. Shota dodged her attack, but Sakura was quick to turn and grab his ankle. She hauled his body over herself and slammed him into the forest floor. The man growled as the smile on his face disappeared. He obviously couldn't handle his emotions too well, but why was Sakura the one to talk? The Kunoichi threw her senbon down at him, but Shota rolled out of the way just in time. The pink-haired woman growled in anger and snatched the senbon back up from the ground. Sakura jumped back towards him, her fists flying. Shota brought out a blade and whipped it across Sakura's arm. It drew blood, but it was something that could be easily stitched up once this was all over. Sakura threw her fist out at him but missed narrowly, shattering a tree directly behind him. Missed, TCH. Shota suddenly winced, and Sakura watched as his eyes flickered from black to red. The man shot his gaze to the side of him, eyes filled with malice. What? Your mind control is intriguing, Shota. Sakura turned to see Sasuke clutching Naruto by his throat, his eyes marked with the Sharingan. Though his grip was firm on the shinobi, it wasn't life-threatening. You use the portal through their eyes to make your way in and simply overflow them with your own chakra, like sending yourself into them. Sasuke's eyes focused intently upon Shota, the black and red colors swelling wildly. No wonder you use such a massive amount of energy to do something like this. And you thought you could control the Kyuubi with something as plain and common as this. How naive, and pathetic. Sasuke smirked. Uchiha, his attention was taken now, completely drawn in by Sasuke's words. He looked absolutely livid. Sakura looked to Sasuke, and for a moment she could have sworn he looked towards her, but it must have been a trick of the eye. She looked back to Shota to see him completely taken in by his anger and pride. Your powers are nothing. All I had to do was freeze the flow of chakra within him. You truly are pathetic. Sasuke's body hadn't moved an inch save for his face. It was strange. Sakura looked at him more intently and saw that, in fact, his body wasn't moving 1 millimeter. He was keeping an intense concentration. Then it happened. Sasuke's eyes flickered once more to Sakura with such a determined look in them that it almost sent a shock of electricity through the woman. Sakura's eyes widened, and it clicked. Now, Sakura sent her senbon flying, quick as sound, and landed them squarely into Shota's unsuspecting eyes. The man screamed and dropped down to his knees, blood pouring down his face. How does it feel to lose something important to you, asshole? Sakura was so angry, tears were pouring down her face. A loud growl emitted from behind Sakura, and a burst of air whipped around her as Naruto raced past to jump on top of the wounded man. He must have immediately snapped out of the man's mental hold once Shota's eyes were blinded. You want to get in my head, you bastard. You want to see the demon in me so much. Naruto reached behind him and unsheathed the dagger Tama had given him that mission so long ago. He held it to Shota's throat and growled. Do you have any last words? Though Shota was breathing hard, and Sakura could tell he was in pain, a smile still cracked upon his bloodied face. You have until sunset tomorrow. What? A loud cackle emitted from the psychotic man, and Naruto finally snapped. He took the dagger and tore it across the man's throat, severing his life. Naruto's breathing was jagged, and Sakura could tell that if he was provoked any further, the demon within Naruto would have almost certainly made an appearance. Sakura sighed, taking in a deep breath. It was over, although the man's last words were a bit enigmatic. Sakura turned to Sasuke and gasped. The Uchiha was sweating profusely, and from the looks of it, his chakra was damn near depleted. Sasuke. Sakura rushed to her teammate and grabbed an arm to support him. Naruto got on the other side of Sasuke and helped lift him with Sakura. The dark-haired shinobi was having trouble standing. Lead, the Uchiha whispered harshly. Although the technique was true, the power he had over Naruto was almost binding. I had to distract that pompous idiot so that you could take him out. But you were taking so damn long in figuring out the plan. Sakura's face paled. Was this what Shota was talking about? Until sunset tomorrow. Sasuke didn't say one word. He looked overly drained and his breathing looked labored. Sakura hoisted him up further, determined not to lose anyone else in her life. She suddenly stopped short and looked behind her. Tama. Sakura-chan, we need to get Sasuke to Tsunade-chan. Naruto's face was grim, but his eyes were sympathetic. We can have someone sent here the second we get him there. Sakura's heart was pounding with guilt, but Naruto was right. Right now Sasuke was in dire need of medical attention, and Tsunade-sama was the only one she trusted to attend to him. Okay, let's go. He's kinda cute for a spawn of that blonde idiot. I would have expected pink hair, though. But then again, that's a good thing for the boy. The fifth Hokage sat at her desk, not with a bottle of sake in her hand, very surprising, but with one of warmed milk. And in her arm was the exact replica of Naruto Uzumaki, save for those big green eyes that stared back at the older woman. Tsunade never in all of her life expected herself to be holding a baby, especially at the ripe age of, well, that was something no one would ever know. Nonetheless, she never thought she would be sitting in her office, feeding the child of her apprentice. But when Sasuke Uchiha came barging into her workplace with a baby attached to his back, Kami, what a morning. And she hadn't had 1 ounce of sake yet. She was surprised she hadn't thrown anything at Shizune, yet. Must be a record, but then again, it was still morning. Tsunade-sama, shouldn't you be filling out that paperwork? I'll take Toru. The blonde woman threw a stamp at her assistant. Well, so much for the record. Let me feed the damn boy. You go check on Kakashi and make sure he hasn't left the hospital yet. Kami knows he would. In reality, the Hokage just wanted a reason to not do all that trivial paperwork. It was tiring and boring, and it made her head hurt much worse than a hangover. But Kakashi should be checked on. He was known for hating hospitals and leaving to heal on his own. So many house visits had to be made by Sakura, the poor girl. Tsunade-sama, at least let me go put him down for a nap. The head ninja looked down to the little boy who had somehow, in that past minute, managed to fall asleep with his head nestled into her generous bosom. Tsunade rolled her eyes and handed Shizune the child and let the woman go. Damn, so much for that excuse. Now she'd have to get to look over those papers sent from that Nara boy. Speaking of which, Shizune, what's the status on the TSUNADEBAACHAAAAAAAAAN? Naruto, why would he be here? Unless. Shizue. The doors to her office slammed open, and there stood Naruto and Sakura holding up an unconscious Sasuke. His chakra is depleted. If he had held back the collector's chakra any longer, he would have. The Hokage didn't finish her sentence. There was no need to delve into something that hadn't happened. Sakura stood next to her Shizue, looking apprehensively over her shoulders. Sasuke had sunk into unconsciousness approximately 10 minutes from the Hokage's office. Despite what her teacher said, depending on how much of his chakra he actually used, the Uchiha might just sink into a coma. Sakura felt her mind darken with guilt. If only she had paid closer attention to what Sasuke was doing, to his signals, then he wouldn't have had to use so much of his power. If only she had followed Tama's words more closely or killed that despot back at the headquarters, her gypsy friend would have never been killed. If only she had been strong enough, Naruto wouldn't have been taken control of in the first place. She had made so many stupid decisions that had caused all the people around her to be hurt. She felt a warm hand touch her back, and she jumped. Turning around, she saw a pair of vibrant blue eyes softening the gaze towards her. Sakura couldn't help it. Her heartbeat picked up rapidly at just the sight of Naruto being in front of her. Her mind flickered back to that moment in the forest where she had finally told him her true feelings for him. Unfortunately, her guilt was much more powerful at that moment, so the smile she tried to bring to her face didn't reach her eyes. It's not your fault, Sakura-chan. Sasuke knew what he was doing. You two need to go to the main office and have a medic nin look over you. Tsunade Shizue was hooking Sasuke up to an IV and looking through all the monitors, checking his heart rate and blood pressure. It looked stable to the pink-haired Kunoichi, but things could change in a wind's breath. Shizue, I'm fine, it was true. She felt perfectly fine thanks to those potions Tama made. Sakura, you will see a doctor for physical or mental conditions. You've been through a lot these past several months, and PTSD tends to hit when you least expect it. Go, the both of you. Sasuke will be fine. Her words lost their power with the last sentence, and the two teammates felt a cold chill rush over them. Sakura suddenly sparked with hope. Shizue, she said as she reached behind her, give this to Sasuke. She still had one bottle of the concoction Tama had made to stimulate her chakra flow and to help strengthen her body. This could very well bring Sasuke out of his unconscious state. Components. Purpetro root mixed with the juices from the Vigoratus plant. Place of origin. 2 days travel from here in a field next to the gypsy village called Antiquus Angelus. Translated into the Old Angel. Preparation. Sakura closed her eyes for a moment, her mind flashing back to Tama's medical hut. She could just see the woman working through the steps with careful hands. The Purpetro root was grinded using a stone mortar and pestle while the Vigoratus plant was pressed of the liquid using a flat stone, a red clay colander and a red clay mixing bowl. The powder was poured into said bowl and then stirred together with the liquid using a simple wooden spoon for approximately 4 minutes and 25 seconds. Then the concoction was placed into the metal vial that you hold. It must be orally ingested. She didn't even take one breath between her sentences. Tsunade Shizue smiled. Good girl. Sakura smiled in return. It felt great to be praised. Now, the both of you go, the Hokage barked. Tsunade Bar-chan, about what Shota said. Naruto took a few steps ahead of Sakura, shifting the placement of his hand from Sakura's back to her hand. His grip was firm but gentle. He said that we have until sunset tomorrow. Well, I already had the Anbu squad weed through the city and the surrounding forest. There's nothing suspicious. We even had a thorough autopsy of Tama's body. Shizue, we can't take any chances, Sakura. We even checked the collector's body, and Haruka's. He could have planted a bomb inside that could have been set off by the predetermined time. The older woman's eyes hardened. The coroner found nothing, however. It could have been just a fluke. But, Sakura's hand was trembling, even though she tried to steady it. What if he was talking about Sasuke? His condition is stable, and with the potion, he should recover quickly thanks to you, Sakura. If the collector's aim was Sasuke, then he was duly thwarted. Tsunade Shizue looked down to the Uchiha, her eyes sharpening slightly. Now as your Hokage, I am ordering the both of you to seek medical attention immediately. Then, once you're cleared, you're free to go. But, the blonde woman turned to look at the two teammates, a mischievous glint in her eyes. I'm pretty damn sure you have something else of an important matter to see to in Shizun's office. Sakura caught on instantly and felt her heart flutter. It had felt like forever and a day since she had seen Toru. And with the thought of Naruto finally meeting his son, she damn near passed out. Sakura felt the warm hand holding hers tighten slightly. She looked to her side and locked eyes with Naruto. It was time. Press the stethoscope a little more to the right, Kyo. Sakura was sitting in a cold chair in a room next to where Naruto was having his own checkup. She thought that it would be a quick run through, but because they were understaffed today, the two teammates had to have interns do their checkup. The Kunoichi even wrapped up her own wound where Shota had sliced his blade against her. Sakura sighed inwardly as the ever so clumsy Kyo fumbled with the sphygmomanometer to take her blood pressure. Suddenly a high-pitched scream sounded from the room next to them, followed by a loud crash. I'm telling you, damn it, I'm fine. I'm just nervous. Naruto's voice boomed through the thin walls, and Sakura felt her anger twitch to life. She never liked having people yell in the hospital. Excuse me a moment, Kyo. Hi, Haruno-san, of course. Sakura stood up from the cold chair and briskly walked out of the room to the next room's door. She took a deep breath and tried to cool her anger. She would not lose it in the hospital. Just sign the damned form so I can go. Sakura could feel his voice vibrate through the door. She clenched her teeth and rapped her fist on the door. Having no response, the Kunoichi opened the door to find the room in complete bedlam. Chairs were turned over, equipment was thrown all over the place, and worst of all, Sakura could smell blood. Haruno-san. A soft voice sounded from the corner. Sakura turned to find a teary-eyed female intern strapping a wild-looking Naruto into a chair. His mouth had been gagged. Thank Kami you're here. She rushed to the pink-haired woman and wrapped her shaking arms about her. He wouldn't stay still, and the Hokage said if I didn't do a legitimate checkup, she would fire me. And when I found that his heart rate was abnormally high, a muffled shout interrupted the woman. Sakura looked to Naruto and glared daggers. Instantly the blonde shinobi went silent. Naruto, if I have Fumio take off the gag, are you going to behave? Naruto nodded fervently, and Sakura looked to the intern, nodding. Fumio walked cautiously towards the man and removed the bandages from his mouth. Sakura-chan, what did I just say, Barker? Sakura walked briskly towards him and grabbed the idiot by his collar. Lower your voice. Naruto nodded. Sakura-chan, it wasn't my fault my heart rate was high or whatever. I was nervous. The Kunoichi rolled her eyes and loosened her grip on his collar, though she kept her hand in place. And why were you nervous, Naruto? You should be used to these routine checkups as a shinobi. Sakura refused to believe he was nervous because it was a female intern giving him the checkup. Otherwise, she might have very well lost it. Was nervous, because, we're going to see him. Sakura watched as the Uzumaki's eyes softened greatly. The woman's hands dropped in surprise and her mouth opened slightly to respond. But she couldn't find any words to say. Of course Naruto was nervous. He was about to meet his newborn son for the first time. Sakura could be a complete idiot sometimes. Fumio, sign the release form. Sakura finally found her words. Naruto's eyes widened and a large toothy grin spread across his face. Sakura smiled back and began to untie the bandages that restrained the shinobi to the chair. Fumio was a lot stronger than the Kunoichi thought. She might have to pay closer attention to her once the reviews came into season. But Haruno-san, the Hokage. She won't fire you, Fumio. Hell, Shizu might promote her on the spot for tying up Naruto. Not when we're so understaffed these days. Besides, she'll take it out on me, and most likely Naruto as well. Sakura finally got the last bandage loosed, and Naruto stood up warily. Oh, okay, Haruno-san. Tell Kyo to do the same. Hi. Sakura gently took Naruto's hand, and both began to walk towards Shizun's office. The Kunoichi's heart was pounding so furiously, and she was sure Naruto's was in the same nerve-wracking condition. Would Toru look any different, even though it had only been a couple of days? What about Naruto? How would he react to seeing his own flesh and blood? And there they were, standing 1 foot in front of Shizun's office door. Sakura looked to her teammate and took a deep breath. Naruto, I've wanted to apologize for so long about not telling you anything. The Kunoichi bit her lip nervously, her eyes falling to the ground. Sakura-chan, it's taken me so long to realize just how important you are in my life and to tell you that you have a family all of a sudden. Suddenly the Kunoichi felt a pair of warm but clumsy lips lock onto hers. The woman felt a shock of electricity shoot through her body, and almost naturally her free hand laced its fingers through Naruto's hair. It was almost too soon that the blonde shinobi pulled away. Do you know how long I've waited to hear those words? The Uzumaki was grinning devilishly and his breath was short, but his eyes were sharp with gravity. His free hand took hold of Sakura's other hand and wrapped her around him into a tight embrace. He said nothing else, but he held her close, and that was enough. Sakura burrowed her head into Naruto's chest, breathing in his warm and comforting scent. It instantly calmed her. Are you ready? She felt his voice vibrate through his chest. Sakura lifted her head to look at him, her eyebrow cocked. Shouldn't I be asking you that? The door to Shizun's office opened suddenly. Oh, Sakura-chan. Naruto-kun. Sakura's eyes widened. Hinata, what are you doing here? She pulled away from Naruto, her face turning a bright flaming red from being caught in such an intimate position. But Sakura opted to keep her hold onto Naruto's hand. Well, I wanted to talk with the Hokage about my next mission. But Shizun-chan told me that she was attending to Sasuke-kun. And, that's when I noticed the baby. Hinata's pale eyes instantly looked to Naruto, and she smiled gently. He looks just like you, Naruto-kun. Sakura could hear the man gulp, and his hand turned clammy. The pink-haired woman squeezed his large hand slightly. Hinata, may we? Oh, of course. Hinata instantly moved aside and Sakura could see it. A small crib lying atop Shizun's desk, Toru. Sakura could feel tears already welling up. She pulled gently on Naruto and led him into the office and towards their son. Sakura reached the crib first, and her green eyes widened at the sight of her baby peacefully sleeping. His blonde hair was tousled, but his skin had a warm and healthy glow to it. The Kunoichi could have sworn he had grown an inch or two since she last saw him. He looked absolutely beautiful. That's Sakura nearly jumped at the sound of Naruto's voice. She was completely drawn in by her child. Sakura took a deep breath and prepared herself for the worst. She didn't know how Naruto would react to seeing his son. The Kunoichi turned around and lost her breath. The blonde had a look of absolute wonder and amazement shining in his blue eyes. He stepped closer, and the pink-haired woman watched as the shinobi carefully reached out to touch his newborn child for the very first time. And it was at that moment, Toru opened his eyes. Naruto gasped. In all of his life, there had only been one thing Naruto Uzumaki had ever wanted from the bottom of his heart. Something so simple and commonplace that no one around him could really understand. He wanted a family to call his own. And though in the past years he had come to realize that his friends were indeed like a family, he had always had that thought in his head. And now there he stood, beside the most beautiful woman in the world, looking down at the most beautiful child he had ever seen. And the moment his son opened his eyes, Naruto knew that there was nothing that he would ever want again. He was perfect. He had those beautiful green eyes that the shinobi couldn't get enough of, and to top it off, his son looked just like him. Naruto's hand trembled above his child, Toru, and his blue eyes locked onto those big, beautiful green orbs. Naruto, the shinobi turned to look at a matching pair of emerald eyes and smiled through his tears. Naruto didn't deserve this, such a perfect gift. Sakura-chan was in love with him. After all the years of wondering what the hell was going on in that woman's mind, he was finally granted a glimpse. And it was a complete oasis. Then to find out that he had been granted the only wish he had ever had, he couldn't help but cry. Finally he had a family to call his own. Below him lay a child with their blood running through his veins. Naruto laughed, his body shaking with the release of tension, sadness, anger, all those emotions that had built up inside of him all of those years. Sakura, thank you. His words were shaky and what he thought pretty damn lame, but it was all his mind could muster at that moment. He wrapped his arms around Sakura and took a deep and satisfying breath. Thank you. Naruto, her voice was soft and soothing as her arms gently wrapped around him. A cough sounded from the door, and Sakura looked up to see Shizun and the Hokage. Sakura let go of Naruto gently, noticing that they had something to tell them. Shizu. Sasuke's awake. The potion worked, and I'm having some people sent out to collect more of the plants to make extra stock of the potion. Tsunade Shizu smiled. How's the squirt? The Kanoiki's smile widened. He's doing great, Shizu. Sakura leaned over the crib and picked Toru up. The baby instantly smiled and pressed his warm hands against Sakura's face. And the father? Naruto's eyes were locked onto his son so intently he didn't take any notice of the Hokage's words. Sakura answered in his place. He's the usual psychotically happy Naruto. The blonde shinobi looked up at her words and smiled a boyish grin. He was beside himself with happiness. Well then, I suppose you two will be happy to know that I'm granting you a 1-month vacation. I expect you to use it accordingly. All right, Naruto shouted, and instantly the baby began to cry. Naruto clamped his hand over his mouth and had the look of a dejected puppy. Sakura instantly began to tend to Toru, rubbing her hand gently across his back and whispering softly to him. Maybe you can use the time to condition Toru to Naruto's outbursts. Tsunade Shizu walked over towards Sakura and placed a calm hand onto the baby, a smirk curling her mouth. Hey, Tsunade Bar-chan. I guess this really makes you a grandma, huh? The smirk disappeared from the Shizu's face and she pulled away from the now peaceful Toru. Go home now before you lose the chance to have any more kids. It wasn't that far of a walk to Sakura's apartment, but the Kanoiki felt like her body was weighed down with hundreds of pounds. Toru barely weighed 8, yet the pink-haired woman's muscles were beginning to weaken. Sakura-chan, let's just go to my apartment. It's closer. Naruto, we already discussed this. Your apartment doesn't meet basic health standards, and I won't have Toru be subjected to something like that. Maybe she was having withdrawals from the potion. But Tama assured her that there weren't any side effects and that within 3 days she would be able to maintain her own chakra levels. She could just be fatigued from the previous events. That made sense. Besides, her symptoms weren't similar to those of a withdrawal. Her breathing was slightly off, that could be caused by fatigue. She would just get some rest the moment she put Toru down for a nap and everything would be fine. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary to the medic nin, so she carried on, occasionally barking at Naruto. Sakura-chan, why don't you let me carry Toru? You look really tired. Naruto touched her shoulder gently, and Sakura smiled. What was the harm of him carrying Toru? He wasn't that incapable of taking care of another living being. Well, she hoped. Sakura nodded and carefully handed the Uzumaki their son and watched as a childlike smile covered his face. This was the first time Naruto held his son. The image was absolutely heaven to the Kanoiki. They carried on walking, and Sakura was soon thankful she had handed Toru over to Naruto. Her body was screaming for some sleep. Billboard brow. A pair of overzealous arms wrapped around Sakura and squeezed tightly. Ino pig. Sakura turned around to see a pair of pale blue eyes brimming with tears. What's wrong? Why the hell wouldn't you come and see me after arriving in Konoha? I heard you already saw Hinata. So why wouldn't you come to see me? I'm sorry, Naruto and I had to take Sasuke to the hospital and we had some things to do and we met Hinata in Shizun's office. Sakura looked over to Naruto and Toru and almost laughed. Both boys had the same look of surprise on their face at the sight of Ino. Their eyes were wide and their mouths were opened in shock. So the idiot finally got to meet his spawn. Hey, that's my son you're talking about. Ah, Ino, are you causing trouble again? Shikamaru came sauntering towards the three and looked at his wife. Ino blushed furiously. Of course not. I was only being a concerned best friend and wondering why no one has come to see me. Maybe because Naruto was a bit busy meeting his kid for the first time. Ino's mouth clamped shut at that. Shikamaru sighed and plopped his palm atop Ino's head. You really are troublesome, aren't you? Ino blushed and looked away. Shikamaru looked towards Naruto and smirked. How's fatherhood? Naruto gave a thumbs up and laughed. Pretty damn sweet. Sakura snapped instantly. Hey, don't cuss around Toru, Barker. She slapped him upside his head and growled. Ah, Gomen Nasai, Sakura-chan. Naruto looked down to Toru. Forget what I just said, okay. The little boy smiled back a gummy grin that looked all too reminiscent of his father's. You two really are quite the pair. Shika laughed and took hold of Ino's hand. Come on, we're late for our appointment as it is. Appointment. Sakura looked between the two and saw the blush on Ino's face deepen. Shikamaru sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, it seems to be that Ino might be pregnant. What? Sakura's heart jumped and a smile cracked onto her face. Ino pig, that's so great. Sakura's head was swirling with the news. Well, that's what I wanted to tell you when you came back. Ino, Sakura gave a hearty hug to her friend, though her arms were pretty weak. They needed to be on their way. We'll talk later, okay? Of course, billboard brow. I'm not the one to hold back any juicy details about the conception. Ino. Shika pulled on his wife's hand, and they were off. Sakura laughed lightly and turned to Naruto and Toru. Both were smiling at her happily. Let's go home, she said. She really needed to rest. Apparently Ino's news was really affecting her, her head just wouldn't stop buzzing. And her muscles were aching so much and her skin was now slick with sweat. Something was wrong. Sakura went through her deep expanse of medical knowledge and went through her symptoms. Weakened pained muscles, dizziness, shortness of breath, cold sweat, possibly a fever. She closed her eyes for a mere moment and sensed it. There was a foreign presence in her blood. Infection. No, even Kyo would have been able to sense a cold during the checkup. Where could she have picked the foreign contaminant up? Everything was sterilized in the hospital. Unless she received it when her wound was opened. But the only thing that could really have these symptoms and not have been detected would be poison. Sakura gasped. How could she have not known when Shota brought out that weapon? The Kunoichi could feel her heartbeat quicken and her breath become jagged. She needed to get to the hospital now. Naruto, her voice was weak and fading fast. Her vision was becoming blurry and she knew that within mere moments she would lose consciousness. She saw the blonde shinobi turn just in time to see her fall to ground. Everything went black, but one word remained in her mind. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.